Did you know that there's rules to Halloween? Number one, always give out candy to trick-or-treaters. Number two, always wear a costume. Number three, never blow out your jack-o'-lantern before November 1st. Number four, always respect the dead. Number five, always check your candy, just in case this happens. Number six, never take down your decorations before November 1st. Number seven, never hurt the innocent. And number eight, subscribe to this channel, like it, comment something down below. That way Sam doesn't come and get you. Welcome to Dodo's Horror Nest, where we share our horror passion with you. Today we'll be talking about Trick or Treat that came out in 2009, which technically was supposed to come out in 2007, but for some reason it got pushed back 2 years. It came out straight to DVD, but it developed such a big cult following that now it's one of the biggest Halloween movies out there, rivaling the actual Halloween movie from 1978. But this is the Gore versus the Boar, so let's find out how many points this movie will get. The first thing we see is a couple coming back from a Halloween party. They're both dressed up, and the guy wants to go inside, but the girl's like, nah, I want to clean up a little bit. She's like the worst kind of humans that there is, which are the ones that don't like Halloween whatsoever. She has problems with that. She doesn't like the decorations, and she also doesn't like her husband playing video games. So just 3 strikes right there. He says that he's going to go inside and start a movie while she does whatever she needs to do, and she puts out a jack-o'-lantern, but she doesn't realize that she's being watched by somebody who's wearing some kind of cloth over their face. As she's taking down the decorations, which is one of the rules, she gets attacked by something under a cover. We just hear her screaming, and then her husband goes to see what's going on. He doesn't see her anywhere, and then he sees one decoration that has the lights on while the others are turned off. It's his girlfriend, and she's obviously dead, and she's been put up as a decoration with a big old lollipop in her mouth. This is a great introduction into this world. After this, we get the opening credit scene, which is done with all the characters' pictures in like a comic book style that looks really cool. When the movie officially begins, we see a group of girls that are trying on costumes, and honestly, they all look great. We meet one of them dressed up as Red Riding Hood, and she's like the dorky one out of the group. We find out that they're all going to an after party and that they need dates. The Red Riding Hood girl, she's a little shy and doesn't think she can do it, so one of the other girls says, you know what, just watch this. So she goes up to the store clerk, and he's like a 5.5, 6 at most, and she's like a 8.5, so obviously he's gonna say yes. So he does, and then she's like, see how easy that is? And then they go outside, and then the other 2 girls that are with them, they're like, yeah, it is pretty easy, just check this out. And they go to 2 other 6s, and obviously they're also 8s, so they also say yes. Then they all decide that they're gonna get together with their dates and go to where the party's gonna be, leaving her in the parade by herself. There's a giant parade in the middle of the town, so she's just gonna roam it by herself looking for a date, and they told her she can't come to the party if she doesn't find one. After this, we see some kid that's walking around breaking jack-o'-lanterns all over the place. He sees a house that has some candy unattended, and he goes and tries to steal it all. But the owner of the house, Mr. Wilkins, who's also the principal of the school, sees him and tells him like, hey, hold on, just sit down, we'll talk about it. And whenever they're sitting down, he grabs a pumpkin and he starts carving it all creepily, and he's telling the kid like, you know what, just go ahead and eat the candy. You shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. And while he's talking to him, you hear some like noises coming from the kid's stomach, and then Mr. Wilkins says, you know what? He's like, another thing, you should always check your candy. And then this kid just starts throwing up some of the nastiest things I've ever seen in a movie. And it just keeps on going. It reminds me of that Family Guy scene where they're all throwing up on each other. And as he's throwing up, he slowly starts to pass out, and he just falls over on Mr. Wilkins' lap. He tries to carry him inside, and he's like struggling to get him in there. And when he finally does, he closes the door, and then he hears a knock. When he opens the door, we meet some of our other main characters, which are some kids. One is dressed up as an angel. She's the asshole of the movie. One of them is an alien, and the other one is a pirate. They're going around not asking for candy, but for jack-o'-lanterns as they're collecting some of them. Whenever they all leave the porch, this is the first time we actually see Sam standing right there. Mr. Wilkins gives him a candy bar, and then he just walks away. Later, we see Mr. Wilkins in his backyard, and he has a human-sized hole that he's dug up there. He's burying some bodies there, and then the neighbor's dog starts barking at him, and he's scared that he's gonna get the attention of the neighbors. What he does is he breaks one of the body's fingers and throws it at the dog to keep it quiet. The good boy does a bad decision and decides to eat the finger, and he's chewing on it. 1 finger a week for a dog is fine, but 3 or 4 might get them constipated, so just be careful with that. As he's chewing on this finger, his owner comes out, and it's this cranky old man called Mr. Krieg. He comes out and asks Mr. Wilkins, what are you doing down there? And he just tells him like, oh, nothing, I'm just planting something, or my pipes are bursting or something. He's just giving him excuses. So Mr. Krieg decides that he's going to go back inside and not mind him. He goes inside with his dog. Mr. Wilkins continues what he's doing. They fast forward a little bit later into the night, and he has completely filled up the hole, and he has set up a little tree with a little gnome there. Whenever he's going back inside the house, he hears Mr. Creek calling for him through his window. And whenever he looks over, you just see Mr. Creek banging on his window asking for help. But it's hard to hear him, so he just kind of says, like, screw you, and goes back inside. After Mr. Wilkins goes inside, you see Mr. Creek get attacked by something, but that's all we see for now. When Mr. Wilkins goes inside, he's greeted by his son, who does a jump scare and scares the crap out of him. You can tell that he's annoyed by his son, or at least they're giving us the impression that he's annoyed. And then the son says that he needs help carving the pumpkins. And Mr. Wilkins says, okay, let's go down to the basement and I'll help you. He grabs a knife and puts it behind his back, making it seem like he's going to kill his own son. It's kind of like a fake out in the movie. And then they go down to the basement, and the kid is just saying, like, yeah, I need help carving this one. And then Mr. Wilkins grabs him by the hair, and then you see him stab something. And obviously you think it's the son at this point. But whenever they zoom out, it's actually the head of the kid that was throwing up in his porch earlier. And then his son, very creepily, he's like, can we carve a scary one this time? I just need help with the eyes. So obviously Mr. Wilkins is not a good guy, and he's even teaching his young son how to be a killer. It's not bad acting by the little shit either. He's really a good actor, and he portrays a scary, creepy little kid good. We see the alien, the pirate, and the asshole angel, and they meet up with another friend of theirs who's wearing a skull mask. And he's kind of like the cool kid, and they're still needing some more jack-o'-lanterns. And they pass this house where this girl named Rhonda lives, who they don't like. She has a bunch of them, and they tell the cool guy to talk to her to convince her to come with them. He does talk to her and convinces her to come with them. We go back to the parade, and there's this guy wearing his Halloween costume, and he's wearing a mask that only shows his mouth. And he's making out with this girl in a dark alley. As he's kissing her, he's like slowly moving up her body, and then she realizes that she's bleeding. Whenever she looks at him, he like opens his mouth and he has vampire teeth, and then she starts running away. She runs through the dark alley and into the parade, but obviously she's covered in blood and it's Halloween, so everybody just assumes that it's a costume and that she's just joking around. But they don't help her, and then you see the man standing right behind her. The next scene is him sitting her down by a wall, and he just closes her eyes and just walks away, obviously killing her, but being a Halloween party, nobody seems to have noticed. Back to the children, and the asshole angel is taking them down to a raw quarry. Whenever they get there, she tells them that she's going to tell them a story. She tells them that 30 years ago, there was a bus full of kids with disabilities, and that their parents were tired of taking care of them. They all got together and paid the bus driver to do something horrible. He drove the bus down to the quarry, and then he begins to tie all the kids down. You can tell that he was going to let the bus just drive by itself and drop into the quarry and make it look like an accident. One of the kids, however, escapes while the bus driver's in the back, and he gets in the driver's seat and starts moving the bus forward. The bus driver begins to freak out, but it's too late as the bus completely falls down into the quarry. We see the bus in the water, and then out of the water comes out the bus driver, and unfortunately, he was the only survivor. The asshole angel tells them that they're there to leave jack-o'-lanterns for each one of the kids that was in that bus that night. To get down to the bottom, they have to get into this elevator that's really sketchy and really old, so the asshole angel tells them that only 3 of them can go down at a time. So it's her, the cool kid, and the alien that go down there by themselves, and she tells the pirate and Rhonda that they have to wait. And then that once they're there, they'll race the elevator and that they can come right after that. The elevator does come back up, and Rhonda and the pirate get on it, and it's slowly going down, and they look down and they see the other kids' jack-o'-lanterns lit up, and they begin to scream and freak out. You see their jack-o'-lanterns turn off one by one. They continue to scream, and they're freaking out because they can't stop the elevator from going down. Once they make it to the bottom, they hear nothing but silence. You can tell that the pirate is super scared, and Rhonda, being braver than the whack-ass pirate, decides to go and help them. She's walking around looking for the other kids, and whenever she reaches the water, you get a really cool shot where you see the bus in front of her, and then it zooms out to her. And then she sees some mask in the water, and whenever she looks down, something comes out of the water and begins to chase her. She gets terrified, and she starts running back to the elevator, and whenever she makes it back, she sees the pirate getting eaten by another 2 creatures. She keeps running, and whenever she tries to turn around, she falls down and hits her head on a rock. Whenever she starts to slowly wake up, she opens her eyes, and she sees that the creatures were actually the other kids, and they're just like, it's a prank, bro, but at this point, they pushed it too far. She begins to cry, and the cool kid decides that he's going to help her, and he tells the other kids to pack everything up and that they're leaving. But as the other kids are going to go pack everything up, they see the real zombie children from the bus, and they begin to attack them. The cool kid hears their screaming, and he decides to go see what's going on, and then he gets attacked as well. Whenever 2 of them make it back to the elevator, they see that Rhonda's already in there, and she already has the key, and she pushes the button. They're begging her not to go up, but she does anyways, leaving them down there with the zombies. I like the next scene because whenever she makes it to the top, you see Sam sitting right there by the quarry, and they just kind of walk past each other, and they just kind of look at each other, but they don't say anything. We go back to the parade and we see Red Riding Hood still looking for a date. She's walking around just staring at guys, trying to decide which one she's going to ask. And whenever she decides to take a seat, she sees the vampire men staring at her. The next scene is her walking back to the party by herself with no date. But you see that the vampire guy is stalking her behind her. And whenever she looks over to see where he's at, she turns around and he's right in front of her. After this, we see her friends back at the party and they're worried because she hasn't showed up yet. They hear some noises and some screaming and they get scared because they think it's her. And then out of nowhere, they start hearing some noises in the trees and then something falls right in front of them and it's a body and it's covered in the Red Riding Hood outfit, but you can't see anything. Whenever one of the girls gets closer to him, she opens the hood and it's the vampire guy. And then kind of like a not so shocking but little twist in the movie, the vampire guy was Mr. Wilkins all along. You can tell that he's freaking out and he has a broken leg and they're not doing anything to help him, which is weird because you just think that these girls are like nice girls looking for a good time, having fun at a party. But in reality, they're up to something because Mr. Wilkins looks around and all the other guys that are there are completely dead. Red Riding Hood finally gets there and she gets on top of him and tells him that it's her first time, so that she's nervous. We really don't know what to expect from this scene, but then right after, everything changes from these girls. Their eyes begin to glow and they begin to look a little bit different. And then you get this cool shot where one of them is cutting her back and then her skin starts to peel away, revealing some hairy flesh. And they just keep going and they're taking off the skin out of their arms, out of their legs and everything. And they're basically a werewolf. And they all begin to howl at the moon. And then the Red Riding Hood on top of Mr. Wilkins just kills them. Once again, while the girls are doing this howling and everything, you see Sam just sitting there in front row seat watching the whole thing. We go back in time to earlier that day to the cranky old man, Mr. Krieg. We see some kids go up to his house and they're there to trick or treat. Instead of giving them candy, he scares the crap out of them, making them run away as he doesn't like children. He uses his little dog to scare the children. He puts an outfit on it that makes it look like a demon dog, and then he uses it to terrify the children. He gets an egg thrown at his house and then he hears some noises coming from his backyard. When he goes back there, he sees that his dog is chewing on something and we realize that it's the finger from earlier. And then he looks over at his neighbor's yard and it's Mr. Wilkins digging up the hole. So this all takes place during that time. He goes back inside and he checks his front yard once again, and now his whole house is covered with jack-o'-lanterns all over the place that he didn't have before. He hears something inside his house, and unlike most people, he's not fond of trespassers. He keeps looking around and he goes up to his bedroom and you see that Sam is there and he has written all over his walls. We finally get a full close-up of Sam. He comes out and he starts attacking Mr. Wilkins. You see that his weapon of choice is this chocolate bar that has a knife inside of it. He begins to stab Mr. Krieg, but he's only 3 feet tall, so Mr. Krieg is able to get him off of him. Mr. Krieg runs down the stairs. You see that his whole house is now covered in candy and razor blades. So I like the supernatural powers that Sam has. It's a little Halloween candy related, but he also throws the razors in there, because of his rule set of always check your candy. So I like that aspect of Sam. We see Mr. Krieg and he goes up to the window. He starts asking for help, and it's the scene from earlier where Mr. Wilkins just goes inside of his house and ignores him, and then he gets attacked by something. That something obviously was Sam. And then Mr. Krieg shoots him and he just goes flying against the wall. While he's laying against the wall, Mr. Krieg shoots him a whole bunch of times and you just see pumpkin guts flying all over the place. Mr. Krieg calls 911, but the call gets cut short as he gets stabbed once again. He looks down and it's just a severed hand stabbing him. He falls to the floor and he looks over and he sees all the severed parts go back onto Sam. Then he just stands up like nothing ever happened. He stands up the whole 3 feet tall. He grabs this orange lollipop and then he takes a bite out of it, giving it that sharp edge that you see in the movie. We get another fake out here as he's going for the stab on Mr. Krieg, and then when he does, all he did was stab a candy bar. He grabs it, starts eating it, and then he just walks away and he leaves Mr. Krieg alone and he's just sitting there confused. But it's not a happy ending because Mr. Krieg is not a good guy. We slowly get the reveal that he was the bus driver from 30 years ago and he killed all those children. The next scene is some kids trick-or-treating at his house. And obviously he has a bunch of candy now because of Sam. So he goes out there and he's giving all of them candy as he's a changed man now. And as he's looking out into his neighborhood, we see all of our characters are kind of intertwined into this neighborhood. You see Rhonda pulling her wagon and she almost gets hit by a car. And in this car is all the werewolf girls back in their human forms. They stop, let Rhonda go, and then they keep driving. And then behind them, you see the couple that was in the beginning of the movie with the girl that doesn't like Halloween. And then next door to Mr. Krieg is where Mr. Wilkins used to live, but now he's dead obviously, but his son is still sitting in the porch giving out candy. He looks over at the front yard and it's the couple from the first movie again, and then this is where you see her pull out the jack-o'-lantern and you just see Sam staring at her. So this is the first scene that we got in the movie. Mr. Creek hears another knock at his door, and whenever he opens the door, it's all the zombie children from the bus ready for their sweet, sweet revenge, and this is how the movie ends. At the end, Trick or Treat gives us a total of 11 gore points versus 0 bore points, giving us a total of plus 11 points. As always, if you want to join the flock and share your horror passion with us, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment on the video, and let me know what you think.